Longtime viewers will know that I am a big fan of the Yakuza games, and I'm so glad the series has taken off as much as it has here in the West. I love the gritty crime drama narrative, I love the goofy, whimsical side content, I love the crunchy brawler combat with pro wrestling moves mixed in. It's all the things I loved about Shenmue, with none of the things I hated about Shenmue. The latest entry in the series, Yakuza Like a Dragon, hopes to capture lightning in a bottle once again. Sporting a new protagonist, new narrative, and new core gameplay, does this new generation of Yakuza manage to rise from the shadow of the Dragon of Dojima? Let's find out. But first, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to get updates whenever I publish new videos. And of course, stick around at the end for more related content. Now let's throw down. This PlayStation 4 game review is based on a physical retail copy of the game played on the PlayStation 5. Yakuza Like a Dragon puts players in the shoes of Ichiban Kasuga, or just Ichi for short, a lowly Yakuza grunt in the lowly Arakawa crime family. At the dawn of the new millennium, Ichiban finds himself biting the proverbial bullet for his Arakawa patriarch, confessing to and being imprisoned for a murder he did not commit. 18 years later, Ichi emerges from prison to a completely different world, replaced by people and places as strange as the circumstances surrounding them. If the broad strokes of this story seem familiar, that's because it's very similar to the intro from the original Yakuza game. The most daunting hurdle for Like a Dragon to overcome is the absence of Kazuma Kiryu. Replacing Kiryu's unique blend of hard-ass altruism was never going to be easy. It's a good thing then that Ichiban is such a genuinely likable guy. Like Kiryu, Ichiban is idealistic and kind-hearted, coming from a modest background with adopted parental figures. But the key differences in the journeys of Kazuma and Ichiban can be traced back to who they are as characters. Kazuma anchored his narratives with glowering patience and grounded practicality. Ichiban, however, lives fully immersed in romanticism. His biggest strengths as a protagonist lie in how he differs from Kazuma. Ichi is brash, quixotic, and most importantly, vulnerable. He is so very similar to Kiryu, yet so drastically different. That concept really encapsulates the spirit of this new Yakuza. It's the same, but different. Like a Dragon still sports the same kind of criminal underworld mystique that fans know and love, but the events that unfold are colored differently through the less brooding demeanor of our new hero. And while Like a Dragon doesn't have my favorite story in the series thus far, I did enjoy it all the same. Of course, you can't have a strong character-driven narrative without a lot of raw talent beneath the helm, and Like a Dragon's performances put that talent on full display. Ryuga Gotoku Studio continues the localization trends it set with Judgment. Various characters are modeled after their respective Japanese actors, and the English dub script has been adjusted to account for Western colloquialisms and speech patterns. This allows the English subtitles for the Japanese dub to be more precise, while also freeing up the English dub to be more parallel with the concepts and ideas presented in Japanese. Sure, there are times when the English subtitles diverge from the Japanese dialogue, but this probably won't bother most people.
Itadakimasu.
There are some really heavy-hitting names in the English dub, including Johnny Young Bosch, Will Yoon Lee, and Sungwon Cho. Kaiji Tang is excellent as our protagonist Ichiban, and George Takei as Masumi Arakawa is fantastic, bringing as much clout and prestige to Patriarch Arakawa as Beat Takeshi did to Toru Hirose in Yakuza 6. The Japanese dub is similarly excellent, with Kichi Nakai, Shinichi Tsutsumi, and Kosuke Toriumi having some of the more laudable performances. I did ultimately complete Like a Dragon in Japanese, but I strongly urge you to give the English dub a fair chance. Here's an early game scene for you to compare the performances and scripts.
例の裏ビデオ屋は
今日兄貴がきちっと締めました。あれだけやられりゃもう勝手な商売はしないっす。
で、そいつからいくら取れたんだ？
それはビデオ屋から取り上げた金は高校生に返しました。裏ビデオっつっても偽物だったんで。
そうか。なら切り取りの方は？
はい、そっちはバッチリっす。頭の命令通り財布を取り上げてきました。
What happened with that porn peddler?
Sir, Aniki took care of him today. He won't ever pull that shit again without going through us first.
Okay. And how much did you get from him?
About that,
I gave the money back to the high schoolers who bought the videos. It was the fair thing to do, and the kids were grateful to our family.
I see. And that debt we bought?
Oh, yeah. Went off without a hitch. Here's the guy's wallet. Just as you requested, sir.
As with Judgment, I am very impressed with Like a Dragon's significant localization efforts. Ryuga Gotoku Studio is still leaps and bounds ahead of the localization curve compared to everyone else in the industry. The biggest departure from the series' norm, however, must be the combat. While past Yakuza titles were open-world action brawlers, Like a Dragon sports a new turn-based system inspired by Dragon Quest. And though it's presented in a rather dynamic way, the actual mechanics are classic menu-based JRPG through and through. Each primary face button has a specific function. X is for basic attack. If an opponent is knocked down, basic attack deals increased damage. Holding circle performs a proper block. You can also push circle right as an enemy attack lands to perform a perfect guard, which will mitigate a portion of the damage received. Triangle will access your skills, which are Like a Dragon's more practical take on JRPG magic attacks. Finally, square is for using items and other miscellaneous actions like summons. The summon animations are by far the wackiest scenes in the game. If you've seen some crazy out-of-context clip from Like a Dragon, chances are it's a skill or a summon. They're so great. During combat, characters will move idly about the battle arena, and it's important to be aware of spacing. You can use an area of effect skill to hit a cluster of enemies, and if an environmental object is nearby, your character should automatically use it in some way. But if you select a distant target, the opponent's allies can intercept and cancel out your attack. It's a fairly basic system overall, and the parallels with Dragon Quest are clear. Like a Dragon is mechanically as old school as its muse. But like its fellow Sega-published RPG series Persona, Yakuza's flashy presentation further enhances the already solid substance. As I said, and as you can see, it just looks so dynamic. Some parts even remind me of Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy 15. The way Like a Dragon combines JRPG components with an open-world modern-esque aesthetic, the way party members have full topic discussions while roaming around, this guy that is definitely not Prince Noctis. I'm sure the Final Fantasy 15 commonalities are nothing more than coincidence, but I couldn't help but notice. So with all these comparisons, is Like a Dragon as good as Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and/or Persona? I don't think I would go that far. There's definitely room for improvement, and some ideas could bear to be fleshed out a little bit more. For instance, why can't I instantly defeat weaker foes on the overworld with surprise attacks instead of having to engage in every battle? Enemy levels do scale up with the player, but weak enemies in weak areas are always going to be weak compared to you, so there should be a mid to late game skill to automatically defeat them during free roam. But even if that's too much, at least let me attack enemies on the open world map to gain an advantage in combat. For a game that was originally a brawler, this feels like a missed opportunity. Even Dragon Quest had this feature. I admittedly grew a bit fatigued from the combat in the game's later chapters. Yakuza's story and open world format is paced much better for action gameplay, so the turn-based system inherently slows things down by comparison. And as solid as the new turn-based system is, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the action gameplay. Perhaps in the next Yakuza game, we can follow two characters in the same way as Yakuza 0, but with one protagonist having turn-based combat and the other featuring classic Yakuza beat-em-up action. I think that would balance things out quite nicely. However, for a maiden effort, Like a Dragon has definitely built a strong foundation. If turn-based combat is the new norm, I hope future installments will further refine and develop the gameplay. Outside of battle, you have this much larger map of Yokohama, in addition to a bit of time kicking it around familiar old Kamurocho. All the side missions are as ridiculous as ever, though they do lack a bit of the biting irony that Kiryu brought to the table.
Can you tell me how to get to the station?
Go! Straight! And turn right! Go, go, go! Go your way! Believe yourself!
Oh, alright, thank you.
Plus, as with all Yakuza games, there's so much to do while you're roaming around this new map. Classic content like darts and karaoke are back, and there are new activities like growing and harvesting crops for ingredients, exams at vocational school, this cinema minigame that reminds me of Catherine, a business management sim complete with shareholder meetings. Even the dating sim mechanics introduced in Judgment are back. If criminal mafioso narratives are the entree, then wacky subquests and countless minigames are the side and drink, and Yakuza Like a Dragon has all that in a supersized combo. There are some other minor details worth noting. Sometimes characters get stuck on geometry while maneuvering about the battle arena. Contextual actions occasionally don't behave as they should. It makes sense that the brunt of the game's annoyances are seen during enemy encounters. The new combat was, according to series creator Toshihiro Nagoshi, a last-minute decision during development. And I guess it's all somewhat apropos. Like everything else with Yakuza, from its heroes, to its gameplay, to the series' localization history, Like a Dragon is a bit rough around the edges. Also, there are no PS5 enhanced features, which doesn't really surprise me since a standalone PS5 version is still awaiting release. But there are details worth loving as well, namely all the non-combat things directly influenced by Dragon Quest. For example, check out the notification whenever somebody joins your party. Or how about the little loading screens with 16-bit sprites? I don't want to get too much into it because I think these parallels are best when discovered by the player, but the amount of elements that can be traced directly back to Dragon Quest is staggering, and it really elevated the game even further for me. Also, just like with Judgment, I'm in this game too, so now you can kick my ass Dragon Quest style. Fuck you, Asai! I didn't quite know what to expect from Like a Dragon. I figured it'd be a story about turf, that betrayal and subterfuge would play significant roles, and that the localization would be fantastic. But I had reservations about the new gameplay style and how it might affect the game's pacing. And I was worried the new protagonist would be annoying. Luckily, most of my concerns were assuaged. The story and characters are compelling, Ichi is an amiable enough hero, and the gameplay is solid and flashy, if mechanically unremarkable. It's not my favorite Yakuza game, nor is it the best, but like our hero Ichiban Kasuga, this game's got a lot of heart and even more room to grow. I'm excited to see where the series goes from here. Yakuza Like a Dragon on PlayStation 4 earns an 8.5 out of 10. 何これ？伝えるね。このビデオは終わりです。でも今、少し日本語話したい。今日ね、日本語をたくさん練習しました。皆さん、ありがとうございました。そして新年おめでとうございます。それでは、頑張ってね。